This is Bloomberg Businessweek Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead, with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Businessweek Daily with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec, live on Bloomberg Radio, television, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals.
And a very good afternoon, everybody. Live across Bloomberg platforms. Carol Massar, Tim Stenovec, live here at Bloomberg headquarters in New York City. We've got a jam-packed 60 minutes coming your way.
Yeah, we really do. Start with the markets. Norma Linda's going to have more on markets in just a second. We are bouncing around. It came in this morning. I thought things were going to be looking the other way.
I know.
A little bit of selling. There was some selling in tech. Tech's still lower, but stocks slightly higher off their lows. Tech names still under pressure. U.S. yields are higher. Is it AI anxiety?
I don't know. AI anxiety, AI scare. Like, we've been talking about a lot of that, but that is something.
SaaSpocalypse.
Yeah, well.
SaaSmageddon.
I think it's safe to say there's that concerns over the AI spend and increasingly the borrowing to make it all happen rather. So there is that kind of as a constant backdrop. But as you said, Tim, we're much more upbeat, if you will, than how we kicked off at 9:30 this morning. So on all of this, we've got a couple of unique conversations. San Francisco Fed President Anthropic Daly, she's going to talk about AI and the economy. So looking forward to that one. Also
on the economy with a read on retail, Dana Telsey is stopping by. Earnings in the group get underway with Walmart happening this week.
And AI, technology, Silicon Valley increasingly playing a role when it comes to national security and defense around the globe. Blue Origin CEO David Limp is going to be live here this hour. So we'll hear from him and just really focus in on the increasingly larger role of technology when it comes to defense. It's not just your traditional defense companies anymore.
He's got such an interesting background because he's an Amazon guy.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bezos brought him over from overseeing hardware at Amazon. I mean, for years, he was like the guy behind the Kindle and Alexa. And now he's running Blue Origin, so this is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. All right, so all of that coming your way, folks, but do not go anywhere. Lots to come. First up, let's get a read on the markets on this Tuesday. With us to do that, Norma Linda. She's in for Charlie Pellet.
Well, it's 2:01 here on Wall Street. We check markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg. Another volatile day on Wall Street. Traders are struggling to weigh the outlook for artificial intelligence, growing increasingly concerned that big tech companies will keep borrowing until it hurts. Let's take a look at these major indexes. We see the S&P 500 up about 0.3%. The Nasdaq 100 climbing 0.2% higher, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average is higher by about 0.3%. In the S&P 500, we do see that energy and consumer staples are the worst performing sectors in the index. We do see the VIX as well, keeping that in focus as we keep an eye on volatility just around that 20 handle. The benchmark 10-year Treasury yield just below 4.1%, while the 2-year Treasury yield sits around 3.4%. We do see gold and silver also falling in trading this afternoon. Bitcoin just around $68,000. We do see that Warner Brothers Discovery has been topical because it agreed to reopen negotiations with rival Hollywood studio Paramount Skydance after Paramount proposed raising its bid and sweetened other terms of its offer. This all setting the stage for a renewed showdown with Netflix. And Norwegian Cruise Line, keeping an eye on that. We're seeing it rising for double-digit gains after activist investor Elliott Management said it built a more than 10% stake in the company and also sent a letter and presentation to the company's board urging changes to unlock what it believes is more than 150% upside for shareholders. And finally, Southwest Airlines is rising on an upgrade from UBS to buy from Neutral. The analysts say that the company's initiatives for extra legroom and assigned seating offer upside potential. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Norma Linda, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, got it. Nora, thank you so much. Hey, when we look at the markets, we are also keeping a watch on Apple because we are seeing that stock move in today's session. The shares price is up about 4% here, so quite a spike here happening on a Bloomberg exclusive. The company is accelerating development of 3 new wearable devices as part of a shift toward artificial intelligence powered hardware. It's a category, Tim, also being pursued by OpenAI and Meta platforms. I mean, everybody's kind of moving in this space.
I want to bring in Mark Gurman. He's in our LA bureau. He's Bloomberg News Managing Editor for Global Consumer Tech. Mark, congratulations on yet another scoop. Glasses, a pendant, and camera AirPods. What did you learn?
Yeah, so Apple's been working on these devices for quite a while, and the strategy is to hit consumers wherever they want their AI, whether it's on their face, whether it's on their body, whether it's around their neck, whether it's in their ears, creating different devices for different features with different types of cameras. You can see there's different tiers here. Obviously, the pendant is something entry level. It's an accessory, eyes and ears to the phone. The AirPods is something more substantial, right, with that audio gear in there. And then there's the high end of the AI strategy being the smart glasses with a high resolution camera, a computer vision camera, all sorts of functionality to really augment without a display your real world experience using AI.
Hey, so all built around the Siri digital assistant. We all know our love and dislikes of all. I know. I'm being a little obnoxious.
Okay.
Our frustration with Siri. Don't they have to get Siri right first, Mark?
Yeah, that's exactly right. All of these products hinge on them being able to bring the new Siri to market and it actually being, to your point, effective. They were supposed to launch it actually this month by way of introducing it. And they were supposed to release it to consumers sometime next month as part of iOS 26.4. But I reported last week they had hit a bunch of snags and issues, and that Siri will not be arriving this spring. The personalized Siri will be arriving later this year, in addition to some of the other Siri features. And so none of this launches until those launch. And so we'll see what happens, but it all hinges on that.
So I want to drill into some of these devices that you've been reporting on, that you have reported on in this piece. The pendant, the eyes and ears connected to the iPhone. What exactly does an Apple pendant do? And look, we should note, it's no guarantee that all of these are going to come to market, right?
It's no guarantee. I think they will.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously there's no guarantee. They had been working on actually a fourth wearable. This is an Apple Watch with cameras for the same purposes, visual intelligence, but they canceled.
All right, got a little bit of a freeze with Mark Gurman, so we're going to try and check in with him in just a moment.
Sometimes this happens when Mark is saying things that Apple doesn't want.
We're so convinced it's
that
like
Apple doesn't want, it's like Mark, he knows more about Apple than people who work at Apple.
Like a little conspiracy theorist.
They're learning from his reporting about what the company's working on.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there, Carol.
What's interesting, though, when we think about this story, right, we've talked about so much with Mark and others about how Apple has been kind of lagging when it comes to artificial intelligence. So this would be a big shift towards that way, specifically when it comes to hardware. We've talked about AI working with Alphabet, right, and using Gemini in terms of developing AI. But this shows how this company, who is so well known for hardware, right, all these devices that many of us have and are AI, not AI, but Apple-powered homes, but it definitely just speaks to where they are shifting. Mark, come on back in here. We were talking with you about the products and what's coming. Do you want to pick up on your thought, or do you want me to ask you a question?
No, I'll keep it going. Yeah, I do think these are ultimately all going to launch, but like I was saying, they have worked on other wearables with cameras that they canceled. Last May, they canceled an Apple Watch and Apple Watch Ultra with a camera, so we'll see what happens. But this is something that they're seriously working on. Tim Cook held an all-hands meeting with employees earlier this month where he said the company is investing heavily in new stuff. He did acknowledge that AI devices are the future, and he said the world is moving fast, and so he hinted that these were coming.
Hey, Mark, I want to look at ADRs of EssilorLuxottica. This is the parent company of many glasses brands out there. They work very closely with Meta Platforms. You've been outspoken about how well the Meta Platforms glasses work. If Apple is indeed competing with EssilorLuxottica, and after your piece came out, we saw shares take a dive on the day today. If indeed Apple is working on a competitor to Meta's glasses, what can you tell us about what would differentiate them? What would be the Apple experience? How they'd be different than what's out there on the market?
Yeah, I mean, the main two things are camera technology and build quality. That's according to people working on the glasses. They believe that the build quality using things like acrylic and other higher-end, non-plasticky materials are going to make their glasses a bit higher end and more premium. than what Meta is offering. Obviously, Meta works with a slew of different brands. They've got Oakley, they've got Ray-Ban, and obviously Prada is the biggest, fashion-oriented brand under the Extra Exotica umbrella. And so you'll see Prada versions of the Meta glasses probably sometime this year. But definitely that's what they're trying to differentiate on. The other is camera technology. The Meta glasses, they have one camera that can move between computer vision and for photo and video. Apple has a dedicated photo video camera and a dedicated computer vision camera. And their belief is by having both cameras, they can get better quality on each of those factors.
Hey, Mark, what about the timing here? I mean, this is a pretty deep dive, and I know you've got your sources and all that good stuff and good reads on the company, but it sounds like there has been a lot going on behind the scenes when it comes to how they're thinking about the AI world and what it means for hardware. And it sounds like some of that is starting to maybe early, but pay off in terms of they've got specifics here.
Well, nothing's going to start paying off until Siri is ready. Like I said, the releases of this hardware will all hinge on them having a working voice assistant. And the hope is with this Gemini partnership, they will have one, and I'm pretty confident they will have one. I think the way that they're going to revamp iOS in the fall with their new Campo voice assistant, that's the code name for this new version of Siri, and integrating the Gemini models throughout the system, I think it's going to be fairly effective, so they need to get that done. And in terms of the timing, for a while now, they have been earmarking an introduction of the smart glasses at the tail end of this year, with production beginning at the very end of this year. I'm told production is still planned for December. That's beginning of production with a release sometime in 2027, so next year. The AirPods could be released as early as this year, but of course that hinges as well on the Gemini partnership and Siri working out.
Okay.
And the pendant is likely an end of 27 thing at the earliest.
Hey, Mark, just last question. Analysts, investors, they want to know the next killer product from Apple. And I think some people thought it would be a car years ago. That's obviously not happening. Some people thought it could be Vision Pro. That's obviously not happening. At the end of the day, as your piece notes, all of this still sort of hinges around the Apple iPhone ecosystem, iOS. These are still all tertiary products, right? These are no sort of like freestanding single product that is like the next killer piece of hardware, right?
Well, I think it's the family of AI wearables that is the sort of next big thing. It's not one single item, but it is things. It is a group of things. And so you'll see AI wearables be one new category, and then you'll see home devices be another big category from Apple. So those are the next two big categories, with the through line being AI and them being able to launch neither until the AI works.
All right. Great stuff as always. Another exclusive from our Mark Gurman. Mark, thank you so much for jumping on with us and laying this out. Mark Gurman, Managing Editor for Global Consumer Tech at Bloomberg News, joining us from the Bloomberg News Bureau in Los Angeles. Hey, we're going to stay on the world of technology and AI. Now, though, really, Tim, how it relates to things like defense and to space.
Yeah, this on a day when Anthropic's talks about extending a contract with the Pentagon are being held up over additional protections. The AI company wants to be put on its Claude tool, this according to a person familiar with the matter. With more, we're joined by Katrina Manson, Bloomberg News tech and national security reporter. She joins us here in the studio. Katrina, I think a lot of people were surprised by this story because they look at Anthropic's Claude as like, this is the safe AI company. And this is the one that's like the antithesis of, everybody out there is people who are concerned about what AI can do. And it kind of raises eyebrows about like who their partners are, who they're working with. What can you tell us about this contract?
It's really important to understand Anthropic has been a long time contractor for the Defense Department. They have a clearance. They're able to use Claude on a number of systems, including one called Maven Smart System, which is produced by Palantir but used widely across the US military. So Anthropic and the military really do go hand in hand. And that's one of the fault lines you're now seeing evolve. As you have others trying to catch up and get those defense contracts, you have xAI in the midst, you have OpenAI, you have obviously others. And who gets those contracts and under what terms is now really a key point. And because Anthropic has always said, here are our values, and because they're now saying we'd like to foreground our values with their relation with the Pentagon is clearly pushing back and saying, well, we have our own values, thank you very much, we'll make them.
Well, for people who don't follow the space so closely, the values that Anthropic puts out there to differentiate itself from competition, to make it distinct from competition, What are they?
I think safe AI is this very complex, ambiguous phrase, but Anthropic has been the ones to say we want to have safeguards when it comes to surveillance. We want to make sure our AI is not used for damaging purposes. And given the focus on what ICE, enforcement agents and others have been doing recently, that's really become a key fault line.
And the government says, well, we'd like to have access per 10. Or like, what is the government saying when it comes to having those guardrails? Because this is like such an important global topic when we think about AI and technology and social media, whether it's our kids, whether it's our families, our personal lives, and then obviously the role of government. We're so critical, right? The United States when it comes to a country like China and their surveillance of its citizens. But yet, this kind of says the U.S. wants some surveillance too.
Well,
sorry, that's a big question.
The Pentagon certainly says we'll make the rules, thanks. And so anyone who is pushing back, especially on things like the laws of war, these are international rules, the way in which AI can be used, it comes down to two things: surveillance, to damaging, what can potentially concerning things, surveillance and autonomous weapons. Now, the Pentagon and the US writ large has its own rules on what it can do with surveillance, mass surveillance, and what it can do with autonomous weapons. And who gets to make those rules, and whether it is Anthropic, in the Pentagon's view, throwing its weight around, or whether the Pentagon wants to throw its weight around back and say, well, then fine, we're reviewing whether you can work for us.
You know what I think about, though? Like, you think of the traditional defense companies. There was a point, I mean, I feel like we've kind of rolled
like
back.
Like the Lockheeds.
Well, the Lockheed Martins, right? The go through all of the Northrop Grummans, the RTXs.
Yeah.
Like, there was a point where there might be a pension fund or an investment group who said, like, we don't want to do that. We don't want to be involved in warfare. But it's interesting, these tech companies are increasingly involved in that space. And I don't know that there's as much pushback against the investment community, but there could be. And so that's why an Anthropic might care about putting guardrails around, right? Potentially when it
I think you've seen in the case of Palantir, you've seen the New York pension fund controller say, we are going to look at exactly how Palantir's tools are used in domestic surveillance.
We are or not?
We are.
Yeah.
And now, that doesn't go as far as to say we're going to pull our money from Palantir by any means, but it begins to say we want to know how AI tools are used on the U.S. population. Yeah.
But I think Carol brings up a good point, and it also raises the point that this isn't anything new for Silicon Valley or the tech industry in general working with the Pentagon or large-scale government contracts. You've seen pushback years ago from Alphabet employees over certain uses of technology at Alphabet and at Google. You have Microsoft, you have Oracle. I mean, the list goes on and on.
You have Google with Project Maven, and I think that's the key one. You had Google protesting, thousands of people who found out their tech was being used.
That was a different era.
Well, it's an era that's carrying on, because now you've got people worried about, are our tools being used domestically on US civilians? And are our tools going to be used for applications of war that really haven't been tested yet? And what's different about AI is nobody knows when it's going to go wrong or how it's going to go wrong. We know about hallucinations just from our daily lives. Put that into a drone, you've got to really think about those safeguards. And so where Anthropic is asking about safeguards, others are now really pushing forwards.
Oh my God, it's like such a big topic and an increasingly bigger topic that we're going to be addressing. Katrina, thank you so much. Katrina Manson, tech and national security reporter, Bloomberg News, right here in studio. And wondering if it's going to come up on a panel that is happening in West Palm Beach. That's where we find Bloomberg TV surveillance co-host Annmarie Hordern. She is sitting down with Blue Origin CEO Dave Limp. They are live on stage at the inaugural Defense Tech Leadership Summit. Let's listen in.
We're very constrained as a country in terms of the number of launch vehicles that we have right now, and our adversaries around the world are not standing still. They're putting hundreds of billions of dollars into launch and into space, and especially as it relates to the moon. Which, we haven't been on the moon for 50 years. We think it's really important for Blue, for the country. And it just made prudent sense from our standpoint to take the brilliant people that we're working on New Shepard, pause that for a while. We're planning for at least 2 years. And then repurpose them to even further accelerate our efforts in lunar and launch.
There was all this excitement, I think, about New Shepard, especially because Katy Perry went to space, and for civilians who maybe want to have that moment like Mark Bezos had. So do you think you'll go back to that at some point? Is it really just a pause?
I think we will. I think there's still, we had multiple years of backlog, and that it was the easiest ticket to sell was that, and so I think we'll likely go back into that business. But again, at the moment in time right now, it just makes more sense to focus on the moon.
So it really is a space race right now.
I'm very much pro-America and a capitalist, but I don't think we want another Sputnik moment. And we were the first to put boots on the moon, and I really feel like we want to put boots on the moon. And this time, the name of our group inside of Blue is Lunar Permanence. So we're not only racing to the moon to get there back again for the first time, but we want to keep people on the moon. The moon. If I don't know where you stand on the Fermi paradox, but if you're in this is all a simulation camp, the moon would have been it's a cheat code in the game that we're living in. It's literally 3 days away. It has no atmosphere. It's got 1/6 gravity. It's been around for 4 billion plus years. It has every mineral on that we could probably think of. It has water. And we would be crazy as a nation not to figure out how to use that as a stepping stone to the rest of the solar system and beyond.
So when you have this visit from the Secretary Hegseth, and you're talking about going to the moon, what is the Department of Defense, Department of War, what is the U.S. administration asking of you?
I think the Department of War is a little separate from NASA. NASA is really the leading the spear for going to the moon, and we're very supportive of that. But in general, when you talk to Secretary Hegseth, Feinberg et al., what you find, especially in aerospace, is that we've, 10, 20, 30 years ago, we mortgaged our future a bit as a country. In that if you looked at the industrial base of the United States coming out of World War II for the next 10 to 20 years, our aerospace industry was incredibly vertically integrated, all the way down to the supply chain components, to the raw steel, to the raw aluminum, to the titanium. And we somewhere, a couple decades ago, lost the formula. And we outsourced that supply chain. And so what I think we're seeing is a renewed interest, and I can certainly say that for Blue, that we're trying to bring that manufacturing back to the United States and our allies. And the fact of the matter is that it's often lost on people. Building a prototype or 1 or 10 of something is easy. Building the machine that makes hundreds of those things, thousands of those things, in my last job at Amazon, tens of millions of those things, that is hard. And so, and part of that being hard is understanding your supply chain and being able to very vertically integrate. And when somebody says, build a new version of this rocket, can you do it in a period of time that's tractable? And right now, for the most part, we have lost our way. And we're really about trying to pivot and get that supply chain, get that manufacturing capability, and make Blue Origin, hopefully others will follow our lead, the world's best manufacturing partner.
So when it comes to going to the moon, what is the status of the launch lander? I know apparently it is in the works right now, being tested in Houston, I've been told. What's the timeline?
Yeah, we have a couple different fire irons in the fire right now. So we have what we call MK1, Mark 1 of our lander, which is a very large cargo lander. It can bring 3 metric tons to the lunar surface. That vehicle is just in cryovac testing right now. It'll come back, and our hope is to launch that in the next 3 to 6 months. And to put that in perspective, that's completely funded by Blue Origin, and it will be by far the largest thing that has ever landed on the moon. Now it's cargo only, but it is a Pathfinder mission. It's going to test our avionics, our LiDAR system, our landing systems, our engine, our BE-7 engine, and to allow us to test all those, de-risk those things for when we try to get boots on the moon as we move forward. I think it'll take an all-out effort, but I think there's a path where we could get people back to the moon in 2028 if NASA wants us to, and we think we have an architecture architecture that would allow us to do that. We'll see what the new administration has to say, but we're ready and willing to give it a shot.
So the cargo lander is the first step before human lander.
Yeah, and they share a huge amount of the same architectural features. As I said, all those subsystems, what you have to add to it is, and obviously launch, you saw the vehicle launch. That wasn't AI, by the way, that's a real rocket. And
you never know these days.
You don't know these days, but the fact of the matter is what we have to add on top of that is life support systems and systems that can support docking with Orion as Orion comes together to bring the astronauts from Earth to the lunar lander before we land on the moon.
You mentioned others will follow. And recently Jeff Bezos, who never tweets, this was his first tweet of 2026, posted a photo of this like black tortoise, which goes along with Blue Origin's, I think, motif of slow and ferocious, methodical. But a lot of people have viewed it as a warning shot to Elon Musk, which really was focused on SpaceX going to Mars, and now he's saying we're going to focus on the moon. What do you make of that tweet, and what is the competition right now? Do you think you're going to be the first?
Well, it gives me an opportunity to put on a T-shirt for you, so there you go. That's nothing else. Let me do that.
I get to keep this?
Yeah, that's all yours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's the first one off the presses, too, by the way. I think everybody's going to want one of those. But gradatum ferociter is the sort of our internal statement about, and it sort of stands for step-by-step ferociously, which is that you want, when you're building space vehicles, when you're going to space, you want to do it in a way that you're testing as much as you can on the ground. Obviously, at some point you have to launch a rocket and see if it works, but we want to just move to it. And steadfastly holding within reason to our mission. And for the last 15 years, we've been saying that, as I said, this moon that's out there is an amazing place as a stepping stone for us. What we're trying to do as a company is we visited all the planets in the solar system with probes, or in some cases, satellites and flybys, and we now know this planet is the good one. You know, it's got an atmosphere, it's got water, it's a pretty good place to live, especially down here in South Florida, what we want to do is preserve this planet and move heavy industry off of this planet so that we can support double, triple, quadruple the population on this planet. And that's doable, by the way. That's a very tractable problem. And the moon is an incredibly important part of that. And so for us, it's not about did SpaceX change their mind or did Elon change their mind. If they did, thank you. I'm glad that you're going in this direction, because I think that's what's right for this planet. I would say, though, that it makes for good headlines that SpaceX doesn't have to lose for Blue to succeed. What the U.S. needs is it needs two SpaceXs. It needs two launch companies that are competing vigorously against each other to try to give us the most capabilities as a country, commercially, civilly, from a defense perspective, because our adversaries aren't standing still. And so we need to be moving very quickly.
Healthy competition. But I think a lot of people read into that as the tortoise being Blue Origin and the hare being Elon Musk and SpaceX. Because it also comes after Secretary Duffy had said that SpaceX is behind, so they were opening up for everyone in terms of Artemis. And Jared Isaacman, who's now the administrator, also said essentially, yeah, whoever can get there first is going to get the contracts. So do you think you're going to get there first?
I think if asked, we will make it. We'll give it a run for our money. I like our architecture. I like our odds of getting there very quickly. I don't have a crystal ball into what SpaceX is doing. I think, again, Gwen and Elon are competent, and they show it every day by launching rockets. But I love the fact that the U.S. would compete us against each other. They are for sustainability on lunar. We're talking about who could get there in 2028. If asked, we will step up and we will move heaven and earth to get to the moon first.
When it comes to sustainability and actually being on the moon, you talk about the minerals that are on the moon, what we can do. What is your thinking of the possibilities? I know people talk about data centers in space. I think Jeff Bezos wrote about that in high school. So he was really foresight for sure on his side. What would be the next phase of this?
Well, there are, in the near term, there are some incredibly strategic places on the moon. We now know at the poles there is water, and there are these points on the moon called eternal peaks of light, where you get sunlight for basically 24/7 lunar days, Earth days, however you want to look at it. And but there are a few of those places, many but not thousands, where they're also very close to these valleys and these caves where we know that there's water. And if you're going to build Moon Base 1, Alpha, where you want to do it is next to these eternal peaks of light, so you can get power from solar panels, and that you can harvest the water for both, obviously, human survival systems, ecosystems, but also for fuel, for rockets. Our rocket that lands, our lander that lands on the moon, that engine uses hydrogen and oxygen. From basic chemistry, you should remember that's just water cracked, and so we can be able to pull that aside and make more fuel to return from the moon, go to different places on the moon. So that's kind of phase one. Find these unbelievably strategic locations, get permanence nearby of these locations, and build habitats. Once you're there, then you can start thinking about that as a lifting off point for all sorts of other things. You can build data centers there, you can build whole colonies there, you can mine the moon. As I said, we don't know everything that's on the moon, but it's been bombarded by asteroids for 4.5 billion years. Pretty much everything is likely to be there is my prediction. And so how do we utilize that and then build manufacturing, build data inference in space? Those are all great places to start from when you look at the moon.
I was telling Mark Bezos earlier that I was one of those skeptic journalists when everyone was going to space. So, I've seen abject poverty around the world traveling with my job, and I would think, why are they going to space? We have so much to fix on Earth. But what you're describing is actually making Earth better by going to space and using all those resources. You mentioned adversaries. How can you ensure that the U.S. is going to get there first?
Well, I think that might be a better question for Jared and for the president. But we're prepared to do everything we can, including our own investment, to try to make that happen. But I'm not going to candy coat it. Our adversaries are investing incredibly into space, way more than the United States is, even with all the private investment that has come in from SpaceX and Jeff with Blue and others. And so if you look at it from a defense perspective, forget about the civil applications, which is more the moon, but just the defense perspective, Sun Tzu said it best: high ground matters. And in World War II and post World War II, the skies were high ground, and having control of the sky was really important. Space is the new high ground. And if we do not think about space as a domain that we have mobility in, that we have awareness in, then our adversaries could take that high ground. And I'm a firm believer in freedom and democracy and this republic that we live in. And I do believe that making sure you have good deterrence against your adversary matters. And I think our job as a manufacturer and a space provider is to give our warfighters, to give our civil astronauts the best technology possible so that they can continue to lead.
All right, you are listening to Blue Origin CEO Dave Limp. He is there with Bloomberg TV surveillance co-host Annmarie Hordern. They are at the inaugural Defense Tech Leadership Summit put on by a partnership including Amazon Web Services, Vanderbilt University, and the real estate developer Related Ross. I'd come across a story actually that how they are looking in that area, that West Palm Beach area, to kind of create, and maybe some of it's already there, like a little bit of a defense hub. So this is, I think, part of that development.
Yeah, and you heard Dave Limp in that conversation refer to his time at Amazon. He was at Amazon for more than a decade before he went over to Blue Origin to be the boss there. And there he worked on a completely different kind of hardware. Like, you go back to the Kindle, you go back to the Fire Phone, you go back to Amazon's Alexa. That was all him. So he handed that business off and then went off to Blue Origin, where, another Jeff Bezos-backed company, talking about the rivalry just now between Elon Musk and Blue Origin.
Yeah, and again, once
Blue.
again,
Blue is what they call it.
it. But
Yeah.
it's once again about going to the moon, which is interesting because we recently heard, it was just a couple of weeks ago, that Jeff Bezos said they're going to pause doing the tourist flights to space because they want to prioritize the development of its moon lander, which they have a $3.4 billion contract with NASA to develop such. And then they also want to focus on other lunar technologies. So if you want to listen to that conversation, just head to LiveGo on the Bloomberg terminal and you can listen to the rest of that. Otherwise, it'll be featured later on at Bloomberg.com.
Hey, let's get a check on markets and how things are looking as we do get a little under 90 minutes to the close of trading. Nora Melinda is in for Charlie Pellet. Hey, Nora.
Hey, well, it's 2:33 here on Wall Street. We check at markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 erased its nearly 1% drop this afternoon as trader skepticism over the outlook for artificial intelligence prompted yet another volatile day in markets. We have energy and consumer staples, the worst performing sectors in the S&P 500. Speaking of the S&P 500, we do see it up about 0.4%, and that tech-heavy NASDAQ up about 0.2% higher, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average also up just about the same. We do see the VIX keeping an eye on the volatility in the market just below the 20 handle, and the benchmark 10-year Treasury yield just below 4.1%. The policy-sensitive 2-year Treasury yield hanging around 3.4%. Gold and silver both sliding in trading this afternoon. We have gold around $4,800 an ounce, while silver sits around $73 per ounce. And Bitcoin hanging just around that $67,000 handle. We do see Bitcoin down more than 1% right now in trading. And digging into some of the individual movers, we have Danaher agreeing to buy medical equipment firm Masimo in a deal worth $9.9 billion. This transaction is expected to be completed in the second half of next year and should allow Danaher to gain a foothold in the medical supply business. And over at Wendy's is back in the red for its biggest intraday decline since May 2022. We are seeing this in focus, especially after its earnings report on Friday produced a volatile reaction from traders. Shares of Wendy's today earlier down as much as 10%. And Sonoco jumping for double-digit returns after the packaging products company reported fourth quarter EPS that topped the average analyst estimate. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Nora Melinda, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Nora, thank you so much. Carol Massar along with Tim Stenovec live here at Bloomberg Businessweek Daily at Bloomberg headquarters in New York City. We should point out we're going to get another read also on the U.S. economy. We're going to hear from San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly sitting down with our Ed Ludlow. They're going to talk about that in AI, but we'll get to that in just a moment. But we've got some more when it comes to the U.S. economy right now.
Yeah, specifically retail. Earnings from the group come out this week. It all gets underway with the largest retailer in the world, Walmart, reports on Thursday before the opening bell. Back with us, Dana Telsey. She's one of the great and most informed voices out there when it comes to retail in all its iterations and its ongoing evolution. She's the founder, CEO, and chief research officer of Telsey Advisory Group. She joins us in the studio. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. Getting ready for Walmart this week.
Yep,
let's take a step back before we get there and just talk about the macro environment, because I can kind of predict what we're going to hear from Walmart. Higher end consumers going to shop there, trading down. People are more choosy with what they're buying, but you know, who knows what they'll say, but that's the macro environment that we've been
They're
in for
certainly
a few
the best
quarters.
out there, and we've seen their sales numbers be very good. It wouldn't surprise me if there's some margin upticks that they can have in 2026 would be positive. But most of all, keep in mind, you've got a new leader running the ship there. Even though he's a tenured executive there, still someone new besides Doug McMillon.
Well, let's stay with Walmart for a moment since we went there. I mean, they are the behemoth, right? And as Tim mentioned so right, when you think about the K-shaped economy, increasingly consumers on both legs of that K are shopping at Walmart. I am blown away, Dana, and I think we've talked about this. Shares of Walmart are outperforming the broader market by a lot this year, up about 15%, and I think the S&P is a little bit lower. They gained 23% last year, outperforming the S&P, which was up 16% in 2025. So what is it that they are doing so right that they finally kind of have figured out more broadly?
I think overall over the past 10 years, and you could really look at it as the legacy of what Doug McMillon did, he set them up for the future, which is now. That future, which is now, whether it's technology, whether it's the blending of online and physical stores, whether it's the assortment that they have, being able to appeal to high end and low end. And I think what's the next iteration going to be? I think we're going to hear more and more about AI, anticipating the needs of the consumer. Big companies always have more dollars to invest.
Yeah.
Smaller companies will learn from the attributes of those larger companies.
How's the e-commerce business doing at Walmart? And I asked because last week I ordered something from Walmart Plus for the first time in a while. I needed a single windshield wiper, okay? This thing was like $14. It was coming the next day. It shows up in a box that's 2 feet by 1 foot by 4.5 feet.
Oh my God.
And it was sent via FedEx. And I thought to myself, they don't have this figured out. Or they ran out of this cost the company
More.
so much to ship to me.
I think overall, we're seeing that not just from Walmart, from a lot of companies. They're still in the midst of being able to figure that out. But overall, stores are still a greater part of the business than online. Online may be growing faster, but it's not on the same base as physical stores. But also, one of the things you're seeing is speed matters, and look what you did. You got your package the next day.
Well, is it that Amazon model of like hook you, get you connected into their network so that all of a sudden it's not just the windshield wiper that you're buying, but you're buying so much more?
Yes, because also you're a Walmart customer to begin with by the physical stores that you're comfortable with it. And the other thing that we've been hearing lately, packaging improvements are underway at a lot of the different online retailers to make sure that the packaging is clean and convenient. We'll have to see what happens to your FedEx box, though.
It's getting recycled tonight.
Yeah, I can only imagine what that cost. More broadly, like Tim said, we did kind of want to start a little bit broad with you. I mean, we got U.S. retail sales unexpectedly stalling in December, suggesting consumers provided less firepower for the economy as the year drew to a close. On that print, did your own analysis, Dana, you do great channel checks and you have all your own research. Did it match up with what
we saw? We saw a solid holiday season. We've seen
all the way through.
4.5%. It was weaker after Black Friday to Christmas. It only picked up like the week before Christmas. The lull in the middle was deeper than expected. Coming out of January to now, keep in mind, we've had terrible weather.
Yeah.
You know better from the Northeast and the Midwest, people getting out pretty tough, and it was all about colder weather goods. So it's up and down, but I don't think anything is taking away from what we call the measured optimism in the consumer space, whereas when you think about the events this year, Winter Olympics, America 250, World Cup, all coming up, and tax refunds, which are just starting now, consumer has a lot of firepower to spend, and we're watching carefully the lower end. We just came out with our credit monitor this week, or today actually, because this week I keep forgetting that yesterday the market was closed. The credit monitor, which shows delinquencies are still on the rise, bad debt being impacted, you have student loans out there. So it's still upticking, but not at a real accelerated pace. It's something to be mindful of.
When would you go from being mindful of it to being concerned about it?
If I heard about a slowdown in sales from all the different types of retailers, I mean, I think this year, could it be a discretionary year? We've had legacy companies like Victoria's Secret, like Urban Outfitters, like The Gap do better. Why? Because there's newness in product, newness in store designs, making it very compelling. So I'm watching some of these sales figures to see that, are they able to maintain the expectations? What's gone more into the back burner, the waning impact of tariffs. Tariffs will be an impact for the first quarter, but they won't be as big an impact through the year. And the continued focus on newness means companies are putting out newer products. You don't have a comparison, so the prices may be higher than they originally would have been.
I want to go back to the consumer credit picture and delinquencies, because on the same day we got that retail sales report, we got delinquency rates on loans rising to 4.8% of all outstanding U.S. household debt in the fourth quarter. That was the highest level since 2017. I hear something like that, and that's almost 10 years. It makes me be like, whoa, wait, is that impressive? I mean, is it impressive? Like, how do you make sense? And I think they talked a lot about delinquencies in mortgage payments, particularly in lower income zip codes, student loan delinquencies. Like, that's a real factor.
They are real factors. It's very important to watch. That's why let's see what these tax refunds come in, because what will it be used for? Some of the debt pay down that's out there.
But to be fair, like student loans, if you've got student debt, how much of you're going to get in a tax refunds is really going to make a dent?
It doesn't make as much a dent, but a lot of times parents will pay off some of those student loans. So it depends who's doing those payments of the loans.
Okay. What?
Just thinking about the cost of education.
How old are you, kid? By the time you go, it'll be $1 million a year.
Yeah, just have the bots
Be a
teach them, I
plumber,
guess.
be an electrician. I'm just saying.
Okay. Hey, I want to talk a little bit about the Olympics that are going on right now and sort of what it means in a world where media is so fractured and you don't have the same appointment viewing that we had, the same idea of, the big companies getting in front of everyone. We had Nike CEO on last week talking about a return to ACG and making a big push at the Olympics. How do you watch an event like the Olympics when it comes to retail?
I think when you think about retail and what brands are involved in the Olympics, I mean, Ralph Lauren, big time.
You love it. You talk about Ralph Lauren a lot.
Yeah, well, you know why? Full price. If you look at the average unit retail selling prices, it's going up. You have a smaller brand who is doing good things with Olympics. This is their second Olympics they've been involved with. Figs is outfitting the Team USA medical team, and that's something that they're becoming known for. I think there is awareness that comes from being part of the Olympics. I think people are watching the Olympics, even though with some of the different time zones. Winter Olympics, whether it's figure skating, whether it's the luge, you name it. There's a lot of good USA athletes that have done a really good job.
Does it still move product?
Yes, it moves product and people want to be a part of it. Even just walk by store windows and you'll see product out there for the Olympics.
So against all of this, the Saks bankruptcy, I know it was expected. Eddie Bauer, been around for a long time. I feel like it's been twisting in the winds for a while. Store closings of Allbirds. I mean, I found my pair of Allbirds. I haven't been wearing them much. But I mean,
Francesca's another one.
Yeah. Significant, or it's just the cyclical nature?
Cyclical wave. When you think about what others are doing out there, more stores are opening their own brands. You have companies like Aritzia, who's gaining share, only 72 stores in the United States. So if old doesn't reinvent, they're going away. And that's why I mentioned before, look at legacy that's reinventing. Urban Outfitters, Victoria's Secret, and The Gap.
What? No, it's fascinating to see because I agree with you that things are just going to change, right? It doesn't mean when we see a closing, it's going to be the end of retail.
Well, the other thing, talking about the retail real estate landlords, Simon Property, largest mall developer in the country, just put out their results last week. And you can hear it from all the other landlords out there. There is more demand for space than supply. So even with the 57 or so Saks Off Fifth closings, the 8 or 9 full line closings, there's demand for this space.
Is it high end though? That's always demand when it comes to malls, or not necessarily?
No, because you take a look at things like, look at the off-pricers, the TJ Maxx, Ross Stores, Burlington, they're each opening 100 stores a year. Restaurants are opening new stores. Look at the dollar stores, the Dollar Generals, Dollar Trees. They're also opening
We just did a
stores.
story about how they're opening increasingly in wealthier areas, and because the wealthier or higher income individuals are shopping at these stores.
People like treasure hunts, and that's what this gives them.
Okay, we're going all over.
I thought you were going to go to the ultimate treasure hunt.
No.
Which I love, but you
No,
go
we're
ahead.
not doing that yet. You mentioned Gap, so I want to go back to Gap. And I'm now hearing from truly from influencers that Gap, and you I think you came in and told us that Gap is back.
It's cool. Yeah.
What has Gap done and been able to do in recent years to sort of I'll never say never, but the 90s for Gap were unbelievable.
So now it's the parents and the kids they attracted, and the reason why, how brands are getting recognized today. Look at how viral things can go with influencers, brand ambassadors. You look at Instagram. The regular person is now your new celebrity who you want to look like them. What Gap's done, their creative director of Zach Posen partnered with Richard Dixon, the CFO. They blended product and marketing, and what did it give them? Awareness. They did that with whether it's K-pop music stars all of a sudden. You're doing that with different brands out there that they're making special collections for Gap. And they're also updating the stores. Check out the store on 21st and 5th Avenue, which has the new look Gap. It doesn't look like the old look Gap.
Huh.
So where is retail going? I always think it's kind of wild. You go into a Zara and you can check out yourself, and and part of me kind of likes that. I can just do it. But where is retail going in terms of trends, in terms of technology, in terms of the experience?
I think overall, where retail is going, it's where you want it to go. I think the personalized nature of retail, because of the data that companies have about your preferences, I think the AI learnings that are being put in place as to when you shop, what price you shop, what style you shop. And I think the marketing appeal of what's on Instagram, what's your favorites, And what is celebrities' favorites, or who
Yeah.
the new celebrities are, they become your favorites. I think it's moving faster than ever. It's made the supply chain of retailers become more embedded in being able to chase. And I think overall, you look at old brands becoming new again, walk across the street to Bloomingdale's, there's more new brands than they've had in years.
I was just talking about
There
that
you go.
with a friend of mine who's just like, we talked about the transformation of Bloomingdale's and against Saks, which is obviously struggling. One thing I want to ask you, Amazon, like I have noticed in stories and different things how aggressive they are in terms of fashion. Is that becoming a big deal for them?
Not as big a deal yet. They're
Okay.
still essentials. But what you are seeing is brands want their own Amazon shops on Amazon. Basically, what brands want today is they want where's the customer so they can interact.
Even though Amazon might copy like what's popular, I mean, they have so much data on where people are buying.
Why do people buy Levi's jeans or buy Calvin Klein jeans or wherever? People want the brand and the fit. So they'll always be private label,
Okay.
but brands provide the halo.
Can we talk big picture a little
Sure.
bit with like a company like Lululemon, for
Yep.
example, going through a CEO transition? You have Chip Wilson out there saying, you need to. I have good ideas for this company.
Right.
You have some product failures that our Bloomberg News team has reported on with this idea of some of the leggings being see-through. Is that brand on the outs?
The brand, obviously, if you're not going to have product that people want, that's a problem. But overall, you can't say it's on the outs because look at the amount of volume that it does with over $10 billion in sales. You look at the other activewear brands, and they're not doing nearly that volume. And there's work that needs to be done to reinvent. I always call it to be at the top of a retail roller coaster. You need to reinvent, remerchandise, and rejuvenate. Time for Lulu to do that. And I was just out there recently. New product is coming for this spring. Let's see how it does.
Is the competition with like Aloe and Viore, is that overstated?
I think that is overstated. I think it's more of there's new trends out there. Take a look how many people are wearing denim jeans right now. I think there's
Even
activewear and
some people
everyday
working
wear.
out in denim jeans, like the Secretary of Health and Human Services. When he hits the gym, Carol, he wears jeans. RFK Jr.
Not comfortable. I know you're talking.
Yeah.
I know.
There's like pictures
Are you
of him
sure
all
they
over.
weren't like?
Oh, I'm
there are
sure
those
they were-
leggings that look
No,
like
I'm
jeans.
sure-
I'm
I'm
just
sure those are
saying,
not
which is a
leggings.
big thing right now.
Sorry, Dana,
Yep.
I interrupted you with my.
People like denim, and you know why? Think about post-COVID, people are going out again. Look at these events we talked about. So they're dressing up more. Activewear needs the newness in order to get people, not just to work out more, to wear new things to work out.
So what about, okay, so Walmart's the big focus this week in terms of earnings.
Yes.
Next week we get Home Depot, TJX. Week after we get Target, Costco, Macy's, and a whole host of others throughout the next couple of weeks here. TJX, again, like I know this is...
Here we go.
They should be.
I like the treasure hunt. What
They,
did I tell
they
you?
should be a barn burner. The other thing that's new for them, they're increasing their spend on marketing. And as they've been
Really?
increasing their marketing spend, they're seeing more traffic in the stores. So look what we talked about with Gap, marketing and product. Look what you got with TJ going on. No one would have ever thought that marketing would be as big a deal for them. It's turning into revenues. And let's not forget the other thing TJ has. They have Home Goods. Home Goods is doing amazing. They have the most diversification of product assortment. I think 2026 looks to be a very good year for TJ.
What's so interesting, though, they don't really have an online presence.
No.
It's like just fascinating that they really don't. Because
You've gotta go to the store.
You have to go to the store.
But
'cause
that's part of because you can't really like find out what
right.
they have, you know.
You can't do the treasure hunt usually online.
They love it. Yeah. And you have very loyal customers who will be there on Tuesdays and Fridays. They know when the new merchandise comes in. And frankly, having off price only gives iconic heritage to the full price merchandise because you know you're getting a deal on some of these brands. And look at the brands TJ has, they're better lately.
You sound upbeat in terms of the consumer, and I think it's really important. We're going to get an inflation print later on this week, so we're thinking about the U.S. economy a lot. I think we get Fed minutes tomorrow from that meeting in January. But having said that, with consumer delinquencies, does it tell you that the consumer is doing okay, or the consumer is increasingly buying on credit or buy now, pay later?
I call it measured optimism. I feel like the consumer is okay.
Yeah.
We still have very low unemployment, but we still need to see that wage growth and the ability with these tariffs, with price increases. It's being watched all the time. I told you we have a tracker that we track 80 items each week. We've seen prices go up, so you have to be mindful. This isn't just a moonshot. It is every week there's something new.
We were just looking at upcoming earnings. Target is reporting in the early part of March.
March 3rd.
Shares are down about 45% from 2021 highs. We're going to be speaking to Bill Smead a little later on the program. That family has loved Target for years, but they've really failed to deliver for investors for a few years. Can this company be turned around?
You can never say never. You can always turn around companies. Do they have the right strategy in place to be able to do that? Target was always used to be known as Target, where more on the discretionary side. 60% of Walmart sales are groceries. It's exactly the reverse for Target. So discretionary matters at Target. They have to win again in discretionary to show interest.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see what kind of has happened at Target. I think about all of their collaborations that they did with various designers and people lining up. I've been, guilty of doing that and lining up. But they were really interesting collaborations and really put Target on the map. And it's interesting to see how they are struggling. There's just... Earnings is obviously going to be front and center. We're going to hear from Mary Daly, the president of San Francisco Fed. Dana, I'm always interesting. There's got to be a lot of things that you keep an eye on to get an idea, not just from what you hear from the specific retailers, but what are some of the broader metrics?
Take a look, when you think about unemployment, take a look at youth unemployment. Youth unemployment has been very high lately.
Yeah.
Find out what they're thinking about. Take a look at gasoline prices. Those continue to give some optimism. How are they thinking about that? What do you think about tariff impacts still coming? How long will that be? Inflation, where does inflation settle out at?
Right.
Those are all those macro dynamics that lead to the picture of the consumer.
Do you think about the midterms? Like this is something, like in terms of what might come out from White House policy? I know the president's talked about, giving certain checks and so on and so forth.
Checks would be great. Tax refunds would be great. Those are all boosts.
Okay.
But I'm not a political prognosticator.
Yeah. So it's not like the White House and their policy is something
No.
to keep an eye on.
Right.
Okay, you're going macro. I'm still going micro, Carol. And I'm going to go to Nike.
Yep.
You at Telsey, you have Market Perform.
Yes.
Christina Fernandez covers
Yep.
Nike, full disclosure. But I'm still going to ask you questions.
That's fine.
About Nike. We had Romain Bostic, our colleague, was in Milan last week. And,
Cool.
and he had an interview with the company's CEO. And a big part of the interview was the return to ACG, all conditions gear. And this idea of this brand has been relaunched 3 or 4 times over the last 40 years. But he was talking about how it's all about a return to the outdoors and still focusing on, the big sports and the popular sports here in the US, but really trying to get Nike to identify with trail running and those sorts of things. Is that the right move here for Nike?
I think Nike needs anything that's going to show appeal. I mean, we know they've gotten some traction on running with double-digit increases in running. They need to do that with more of their categories and more of their sub-brands. We've heard mixed things about Nike Skims so far, and we'll have to see how that moves
This is the
along.
collaboration.
Yep. But what Elliot's doing is he certainly has the history and the heritage, and now he needs to put wins on the board. And I think whether it's all condition gear, whether it's any of the other items where he can show an uptick, it's one thing at a time. Look what he just said. He said they're in the middle innings or whatever of their progress. He's got to show to get to the higher innings and show that it's working. He needs wins on the board. So that's what I'm looking for them.
Just to wrap up here, I love in your notes you say, I always use a letter to define what will be the annual discussion points of retail. And for this year, you say it's the letter A.
Right. AI, affordability, advertising, assortment, adaptability. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about AI and what it means. Look what we've been talking about, brands needing to reinvent themselves.
Right.
It's about the assortment. How do they do that and gain awareness? It's about advertising. What about speed to market? It's about adaptability. And affordability, very much top of mind, what that's going to look like in 2026.
Which company does that now yet or not? Like when you go back to some of the favorites, like
TJX does. I mean, they
Carol's
hit all
favorite.
price points.
I love it. I love
Yep.
it. Dana, thank you so much.
Thank you for having
We
me.
do this great roundup.
Love it.
We do too. Dana Telsey, she's founder, CEO, and Chief Research Officer of Telsey Advisory Group, joining us here in studio. Be well. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.